Hello, America. I want to talk to you. I'm sure we're alike. I'm so tired of the grandstanding and the yelling back and forth. Good heavens, man, our kids are in trouble. Real trouble. There's something much bigger going on. And I don't think anybody's willing to talk about it because everybody is just, if you really cared about children, you really cared about lives, you would feel the same way about the 106,000 people that have been killed this year from drug overdoses. Why do we not care about the fentanyl that's killing our kids, but the guns? Because this is all political. What we saw yesterday in Uvalde, Texas, 19 students and 2 teachers killed, was horrific. But I haven't heard anybody actually sit down and talk about what's really going on. So tonight, I want to talk to you about the replacement theory. See, to understand not just yesterday's shooting, but all of the shootings in the last few years, everything, the banks, what's going on in our schools with our teachers, all of it. It's not disconnected. Let me take you to last week's shooting first, and you'll see in the end, this explains what happened yesterday. Last week, they weren't blaming the gun. The media blamed the last week's shooting on something called replacement theory. Mostly, the media wants Americans to buy into their narrative that replacement theory is being promoted by Republicans because everyone on the right side of the political spectrum is a dangerous racist. Watch.
What the Democrats need to do, and it's so obvious at this point, is brand them with it, is basically take this replacement theory and now make it the Republican racist replacement theory. Make every Republican answer, do you believe in it or not? Brand every Republican, this is the party of the replacement theory.
No, but it's not. As I showed you last week on radio, this is a Democrat thing. That's what replacement theory is. Most Americans, including GOP, have no idea what replacement theory. So was he talking about marketing or was he talking about truth? The left is operating from a great replacement theory, and it's not the same one that they're trying to brand you with or me with. But it is the playbook that the progressives have been using ever since Woodrow Wilson, but really since Barack Obama. It's replacing everything you thought you knew, not just America, but anything that is true. And this is a problem with our kids. Let me give you a rundown of just some of the things that the Biden administration and Democrats are working overtime to replace. Voting, for example. Democrats are frustrated with the darn Constitution and how it allows states to run their own elections, even for national races. It's got to be replaced. Okay? Another replacing the U.S. dollar. The Biden administration is still driving to replace our currency with a digital dollar. This is a programmable dollar. It will be one of the most drastic expansions of federal power in U.S. history. It makes us Chinese, really. Did you vote for that? Because I don't remember that being on the ballot. What about replacing free speech with sometimes, if we agree with it? The Biden administration is experimenting with that one, too. But after a lot of Americans said, yeah, we read 1984, no thanks, the Department of Homeland Security pressed, quote, pause, end quote, on the new Disinformation Governance Board. But no, as soon as they figure out a better marketing campaign, they'll be back in business. Absolutely, positively. That's not just free speech. That's also freedom of the press. In fact, Team Biden has already hired DHS Secretary Michael Chertoff to the co-author of the Patriot Act to lead the thorough review and assessment of the Disinformation Board while it's on pause. They didn't stop it. Next, states' rights. The left loathes the states they don't control because those states don't worship at the progressive altar, and I mean that literally. So within days of the Supreme Court's leaked decision that might overturn Roe versus Wade, Democrats in Congress slapped together a law to try to federally guarantee abortion rights. They just simply can't allow states and you to decide for yourself. It's way too much freedom. They don't know what they're doing. The left is very pro-choice, except, when it comes to letting states choose to make their own laws, as the 10th Amendment states. So why stop at state rights? Let's surrender U.S. sovereignty. The Biden administration is leading the charge into giving the World Health Organization power over how we handle domestic health crisis. This is happening this week. As Daniel Horowitz and I explained last week on radio, amendments to the International Health Treaty would basically give the WHO's director power to declare a public health emergency in any country with all the restrictions that entails. Everybody stay home, not the president, not the Senate, not the House, not the Supreme Court, a global governance, WHO. Did you vote to give the WHO that kind of power? After what we've witnessed in the past 2 years, I don't even want the WHO telling me what kind of Band-Aid to use, much less telling me to shut down my business to flatten the curve. Another example, replacing Supreme Court norms. This has been a huge priority for President Biden and the left. Just months after taking office, Biden ordered a study on packing the court. After the recent leaks of the Supreme Court's draft decision, the president refused to condemn the leak. There's 2 of them gone. And the White House said both Biden and Kamala Harris were energized by the protesters gathering at the homes of the Supreme Court justices. There's 3 norms gone. That's not leadership. That's not protecting a vital institution. Why? Because they don't want to protect those institutions. They want to transform them and replace them. They want to replace the Supreme Court as we know it. In fact, Senator Elizabeth Warren and Representative Pramila Jayapal introduced a judicial ethics and anti-corruption bill. That's going to govern the Supreme Court, really? This is one of the dumbest ideas you'll probably hear. The bill would provide, quote, a mechanism to enforce judicial accountability through the creation of a Supreme Court Complaints Review Committee that would allow the public to file complaints against the Supreme Court justices. Well, why stop there? Why don't we just turn the Supreme Court into American Idol and vote them off? While I'm on the topic of institutional norms, how about replacing the U.S. Senate norms? Urged by President Biden, Senate Democrats tried to end the filibuster in January, but they were outvoted 52-48 when Senators Manchin and Sinema voted with the Republicans. Now, curiously, just 5 years ago, 27 Senate Democrats, including Kamala Harris, signed a bipartisan letter urging Senate leadership to preserve the filibuster. Now all 27 of them have reversed course. Now that the pro-abortionists are all riled up over Roe versus Wade getting overturned, Democrats are back to threatening the filibuster again. Elizabeth Warren spelled out why the left has to replace America.
I believe in democracy, and I don't believe that the minority should have the ability to block things that the majority want to do. That's not in the Constitution. What we're talking about right now are the individual rights and liberties of half the population of the United States of America.
Okay.
I think that's enough to say it's time to get rid of the filibuster.
Okay. She says, I don't think a minority should rule. Well, they didn't. It was 52-48. That means your side was in the minority. The Democrats make abortion great again. That bill that they put up was defeated 51-49 or 52-48, one of those. According to math, even if it is 51 to 49, 51 is greater than 49. Although these days, are you even sure of math? Or has that been replaced? Oh, yes, it has. Next, replacing energy, especially energy that works. Joe Biden and his climate czar, John Kerry, are on a mission to cancel oil and gas. From the moment he took office, Biden's actions have been dedicated to undermining our energy independence, to the point that he's now reaching out to Venezuela's dictator to ease U.S. oil sanctions on Venezuela. Great idea. Want another one? Yeah. How about shutting down our refineries and our oil plants and our coal plants faster than we're replacing them? They are now saying that 3/4 of the United States this summer will be experiencing blackouts. That damn Putin. Let's talk about replacing gender. That's not solid. In April, the White House recognized Transgender Day of Visibility by announcing a range of efforts to promote transgenderism. President Biden recorded this message telling American parents that affirming their child's transgenderism is, quote, one of the most powerful things you can do. Actually, it's not, unless you're on the evil side. Biden administration is about to further replace gender with changes to Title IX rules that will expand the definition of sex to include transgenderism. Ironically, Title IX, the law that was created to protect women's sports, will now be used to destroy women's sports. Are you seeing that nothing is solid? What you thought was solid is liquid. What you thought was right side up is now upside down. The left is also working to replace parental rights, especially when it comes to gender identity issues. Schools like this one in New Jersey have adopted new policies that accept a student's asserted gender identity without needing parental consent. School staff members are not required to notify a student's parents about the student's gender identity or expression. And do you remember last fall when Attorney General Merrick Garland announced the DOJ and FBI would work to address alleged threats and violence by parents towards school boards? The National School Boards Association asked President Biden for some help, urged the government to classify these parental threats as domestic terrorism. But AG Garland testified before Congress that the DOJ was not using counterterrorism tools to target parents. Well, there's another thing that's upside down. According to Congressman Jim Jordan and Mike Johnson, whistleblowers have now said that the DOJ and FBI have been investigating parents across the country with the threat tag created by the FBI's counterterrorism division. Is this misinformation or just a flat-out lie under oath? Parents who are upset about the policies of their local school board are actually being investigated by the FBI as potential terrorists. We now know it. I told you you wouldn't recognize your country anymore. I wish I would have been wrong about that one. Okay, so what does this have to do with the shooting yesterday? Can you imagine growing up in this world where nothing is true? The shooting yesterday is none of these things, and yet all of these things. Listen, this has been a plan.
Knows that we are going to have to make sacrifices. We are going to have to change our conversation. We're going to have to change our traditions, our history. We're going to have to move into a different place as a nation to provide the kind of future that we all want desperately for our children.
Okay.
And he is the man to do it.
Okay. This is what has happened. We move into a new place. We replace what we have with something different. That's Michelle Obama in 2007. We didn't ever hear this or given a choice because she was taken off the campaign trail because they knew what she was saying was the inside part. That is replacement theory. But it's much deeper than all of this. We've replaced gender with there is no gender. There is no parental authority. In fact, your parents can't be trusted. There is no police authority. Let's reimagine that. There's no truth, just your truth. There are no men because they're all oppressors, and God forbid you tried to define a woman. And all of this nonsense is wrapped up in the nice green package that the world will be destroyed and we're all going to die unless things change in the next 5 years. Gee, I wonder why that kid might be messed up. I wonder why our kids are killing themselves. I wonder why our kids don't know the difference between right and wrong and can just go in and kill people when mom could have said, and it's her right, a week after the child is born, you know what, let him die. Oh, gee, thanks, Mom. No wonder you believe your parents can't be trusted. There are bad parents already. What do your kids actually believe in? We've chased God. There's nothing that is real. Nothing has meaning. You're not allowed to fail, which means you can never really try and succeed. And if you do succeed, you're either a traitor or a sellout, or you become an oppressor. In the 1960s, we drove God out of our classrooms. But we have finally filled that vacuum with a new religion, the real replacement theory. The left is replacing America and everything that we hold dear brick by brick. A lot of times it's hard to keep track of everything, which is why I am so grateful I'm not here alone. I've got an amazing staff on radio and television and online, and we have put together a network that I used to say you are building. Well, you built quite a powerhouse. This is the largest streaming network now for center-right people in the world. And we have great hosts that are rooting all of these things out, keeping you informed on issues you might otherwise never hear about. One of those hosts, Mark Levin, joins me next. If you own a home or property, there are two reasons that you really never want to become the victim of home title fraud. Number one, the cyber criminal worms his way into your home's title. He takes out a loan and uses your home's equity. Then he's vanished with the money and left you with the bill, and you didn't even know about it. Number two, the victims, home title fraud. If that's you, you may not know about it for months, until all of a sudden there's a sheriff at the door with a warrant for your eviction. You find out when the collection calls start and the sheriff shows up. These loans that he's taken out are going to go onto your record and you could lose everything. Please, just call Home Title Lock. It's America's trusted leader in this. I urge you to do it. Number one, go to HometitleLock.com. Read the testimonials from the retired FBI agents and others about how real this is. Then register your home address to see if you're already a victim. And when you register to protect your home, there'll be a little space for you where you can tell them that Glenn sent you. That way you'll get 30 days of free protection. It's HometitleLock.com. That's HometitleLock.com. Joining me now is the one and only Mark Levin, a friend of the program and just a great guy, constitutional scholar, best-selling author, blah, blah, blah. He's much smarter than I am. Somehow he has managed to get into trouble with Media Matters, however, last night, because he actually suggested that if we emphasize our Judeo-Christian principles, it might be a positive thing, and we might not see so many shooters. The Media Matters headline says, quote, Fox News host Mark Levin says America can stop mass shootings by celebrating Judeo-Christian principles. My gosh, and the hater is on with us now. Hi, Mark.
Brother, how are you, sir?
I've been better. Our country is under attack. They're dismantling it every step of the way. I want to get into that, but let's talk about what you meant by that, because I think you're absolutely right.
First of all, people need to understand Media Matters is basically populated with a bunch of punks with a very low IQ who work for the Democrat Party, who are funded by dark money, who rip off the American taxpayer because it is a so-called 501c3 nonprofit, non-political operation. And I said on my radio show last night, they're hanging on my every syllable to try and find something to attack. Now, I said a lot last night during the course of 3 hours. It was the entire focus of my program, what took place in Texas. One of the things I said, among many, was that we need to get back to our faith. We need to stop pushing God out of the public square. There's no reason we can't have prayer, open prayer, silent prayer in our schools.
Yep.
That, as you know, our framers never intended separation of church and state to mean what it does today. That's really a relatively modern ideology pushed by the Supreme Court. They're talking about a letter that Thomas Jefferson wrote, but Thomas Jefferson wasn't at the Constitutional Convention. It has absolutely nothing to do with it. And so when you push faith, and by the way, I'm not saying everybody has to be Jewish or Christian or anything else, but we are a Judeo-Christian nation. That's how we were founded. And quite frankly, that's why everybody and anybody with whatever kind of background can benefit from this society.
Correct.
Because of Judeo-Christian principles, because both faiths went through a Renaissance, went through a Reformation, whereas some faiths did not. And so you're free to be an atheist, you're free to be an agnostic, you're free to be whatever you want. But you're not free to change our history, and you're not free to change our principles. You do what you want, but society is what society is. So this war on God, this war on faith in the public square has had an impact. This war on the classroom, where we refuse to teach our grand traditions and customs and beliefs, and instead are taught to hate ourselves and hate the person sitting next to us with these racist ideologies, with these bigoted ideologies, reinforced by an incredibly corrupt media and Democrat Party, which gives it voice, which gives it power, has an effect. Now, I don't know about the specific case, and there are other things too, certainly, but you cannot ignore the cultural rot that's taking place and being promoted by those who have devoured our society. And
So-
if we're going to get back to some form of rationality, we're going to have to deal with it.
Right. It's not that you have to go to church, but what is wrong with the 10 Commandments? Can you give me 9 out of the 10? Can you give me 8 out of the 10? No. We left a vacuum in the 1960s, and they filled it with a new religion, Mark, and I know you agree with that. What is happening to us now, these are all rituals. You must comply and participate in what they say. Otherwise, you're out, you're a heretic, and burn you at the stake.
It's 100% right. That's this whole American Marxism idea I've talked about, or fascism that you've talked about. The bottom line is you're allowed to debate as long as you debate within their box.
Right.
You can debate, but debate gun control. Nothing else. That's it. And if you don't debate gun control or vote for some federal legislation that's going to fix everything, then you're part of the problem, must be a white supremacist, must support mass shooting. It goes on and on and on. This is why they don't like free speech. This is why, I mean, this guy apparently was on the internet, right? He was on social media. If he'd come out and challenged Fauci, they would have nailed him in 3 seconds. So there are some ways, apparently, to police this stuff. I mean, if they don't like you, they ban you, they suspend you, they put the scarlet letter on your site or whatever they do, which is why I resigned from Twitter a long time ago, and Facebook too, but I'm back on Twitter. Hopefully that sale goes through. All that said, when anything goes, then anything goes. And that's the problem with secularism. Where do you go with secularism? You go to hell. There's nothing left. Where you go? I don't know. You don't have any principles. You don't have any faith. You don't have any morals.
So, if you had done absolutely everything and really opened up and said, I really want to know an answer. Tell me answers. Let's have this conversation. Gun control off the table, just temporarily. And let's do all of these things that aren't constitutionally protected, okay? That actually might help. You're still going to have a problem, and you're going to get to the constitutional question again. And if you want to change that, fine. Then change it through an amendment of the Constitution. They're not serious about this because they're not actually talking about anything but gun control. They wouldn't talk about the isolation during COVID. They don't want to talk about the suicide rate of our teenagers. It's through the roof. They don't want to talk about how they're lost. They don't want a doctor to even talk to your kid if they say they're transgender. You can't, God forbid, you have a sociologist or a psychologist look and talk to your kid. Can't do that. They don't want to talk about anything. They won't talk about the drug epidemic. What's killing our kids? Fentanyl. Okay, great. Get rid of the fentanyl. How about we ask ourselves, why are our kids willing and eager to take that stuff? They won't talk about it. So there is no answer here because, Mark, we're not looking for an answer.
It's 100% right. We're not even allowed to have the discussion, as you point out. That's the problem. It's all about their ideology and agenda. That's what it's about. And so that's what's being taught in the schools. That's what's being pressed in the media and so forth. And if you have some questions you want to raise, whether you're conservative, Republican or not, you're considered evil. I mean, look at this Elon Musk, who wants to buy Twitter, believes in free speech. He's no right-wing conservative. Crash him. Look at this Joe Rogan, the biggest podcaster out there. He's no right-wing conservative, but he decided he wanted to go elsewhere and raise some. Trash him. And you go on and on down the list. It's not so much so-called right versus left. It's them against us. And it really is. And this poison, this cultural rot is spreading. I would just say to parents out there, keep it up, keep protesting, keep pressing the school boards, but add something to the top of your list. And that is school safety. No longer leave it to the educational bureaucrats. You demand that they protect your kids in that schools. You demand that they have armed, trained individuals in that school who can shoot back like that Border Patrol agent killed that mass murderer. You demand that you have at least as much security in every school as we have at every airport with metal detectors. Every TSA agent there is carrying a pistol. Those are our kids. You demand that we at least have as much protection in our schools as they have in the Capitol building. The fact of the matter is we turn our kids over to these public schools 6, 7, 8 hours a day. We say goodbye to them. They get on the bus or we drop them off or they walk. We have every right to expect them to come back alive. But to your point, nothing is perfect. Nothing will be perfect. We got to try and cut down on the chances for this sort of thing. It doesn't mean it's never going to happen, but it might happen less if we stop debating about stupid stuff and start taking on the university of issues that are in front of us.
Mark, hang on just a sec. We're going to come back. I have to tell you, before we break, I talked to Ken Paxton, the Attorney General today of Texas, and I said, okay, so what can we do here in Texas? And he said, Glenn, there is money and there's a law that's already passed where every teacher can be trained to defend the classroom and carry a gun. I've been to some of the schools in Texas, and they are clearly marked. All teachers or certain teachers are armed and ready to defend and kill anyone who threatens the lives of the children in this school. I have to tell you, the signage alone makes you go, damn right. And that nobody's walking into there with a gun, I can guarantee you. Back in just a minute. So, Mark, we have a lot of things on our plate, and I think they're all going to pretty much hit this summer. We have gas prices going through the roof. We'll probably pay $7 a gallon for gas by the end of summer, maybe $6.50. We have the WHO trying to take away the right of the president and our own government to declare national emergencies and set the parameters. They now can do it if this passes this week. You have the Supreme Court. They're coming out with another gun case, a massive gun case. Everything I've heard so far is we believe it's actually going to go the way of the Constitution. You have abortion. You have people that want to pack the court. I mean, this is a summer from hell.
It's like there's this permanent mob that the Democrat Party and the left have now. And if they don't get their way, they unleash it. They tell us it's peaceful. They accuse conservatives of being violent. For all those decades, Roe versus Wade was in place. It still is until the final decision. I don't remember pro-lifers threatening the lives of Supreme Court justices or threatening to burn down the Supreme Court.
No, or pack
I
the
don't
court.
remember those. Yeah, and I don't remember those massive fences going around the Supreme Court in case there's a riot, which they just did now. Are exactly right. Pack the Supreme Court. It's interesting. The Democrat Party has transformed into this radical, in my view, Marxist operation.
Yes.
They may not admit it. People may not want to say it. Now, why do I say that? For a lot of reasons. But you know who blocked FDR from packing the court? His fellow Democrats.
Democrats. Yep.
His vice president, who'd been Speaker of the House, went around his back to organize the Democrats in the House to oppose him. So the Democrats stopped FDR from packing the Supreme Court because they had some respect for the institutions. This crowd has no respect for the institutions. They'll destroy our voting system. They'll destroy the Supreme Court. They'll destroy separation of powers. They're still chasing Donald Trump down in Mar-a-Lago with one phony investigation after another. They will gerrymander if they can, so Republicans don't have any say in these various states. So the Republicans have to, and have successfully, fight back. But we can go on and on. They just nominated a woman to the Supreme Court who doesn't even confess to being a woman. And yet we're told she's the first black woman who's nominated. Now I'm totally confused. This is what's going on. The language is under attack. It's all under attack. So to answer your question about the Supreme Court, will the Supreme Court survive? I don't know. I don't know. But if the Supreme Court wants to survive, it's up to these justices. They must remain strong, particularly the originalists on the court. And there's only really 3.5 of them.
Yeah.
So 5 of them have to stand firm. John Roberts has gone Hollywood as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
We certainly could use a Rehnquist type. No, he's a disaster.
Yeah, I think John Roberts, even if the court was going for guns and saying the New York laws are too restrictive and unconstitutional, I could see after yesterday John Roberts saying, no, we shouldn't do that. It might upset people. You know, the truth does upset people. It upsets people a lot. It makes you wildly uncomfortable. Because it forces you to make a decision. Which am I for, the truth or the lies that we're living? Can you help me with another thing? The UN Secretary General said this last weekend that it's a declaration of war if Russia doesn't open the southern ports. Millions will starve. Millions will starve. But we knew that, you know, the minute this war started. Wouldn't it be a declaration of war if we went in or anyone went in, as the UK looks like they're planning on doing, to break up that blockade and get the food, especially if we fire at one of their ships?
First of all, let me just add a footnote. In New York, they have the strictest gun laws in the country, bar California. In Texas, they don't. You had 2 mass murders, one in New York and one in Texas. Pass all the laws they want. It's not going to do anything.
Right.
As for your point, why don't we learn from Reagan? Reagan would never send ships into the Black Sea. He would arm the Ukrainians with these missile systems that we do have, with these missiles. Not missile systems, missiles that can take out these ships. That's what took out a couple of their ships already. Give them the missiles they need. It'll clear out, at least in part, the Black Sea. I am not, Glenn, one of these nationalist populists of a Pat Buchanan type. I'm not that. I'm a Reaganite when it comes to foreign policy, and very much like Trump. Trump was more Reaganite than people realize.
I agree.
Peace through strength. But my own view is Russia invaded Ukraine. Ukraine is an ally of ours, whether we have a treaty or not, and we actually do have an agreement with them when they turned over their nukes to Russia. We should arm them to the teeth. Biden's been a day late and a dollar short. The Poles, the Romanians, the Balkan states, and the British have really led the way. We've followed. And I think the result, to some extent, on the battlefield has been very good and needs to continue to be very good. But there are ways to to address this without sending in the United States Navy.
So here's the thing. I think we agree, actually. I'm for arming the Ukrainians. I'm for helping the Ukrainians. I don't want a war. I don't want to send troops over there. We don't have to if you're a strong leader. But I don't like the fact that we're sending almost the entire yearly budget of the Soviet Union or Russia's. That's their defense budget is what, $63 billion, and we just sent about $58 billion and still more coming. Where are the accountants on this? There's something wrong here, and we seem to be itching for a fight, and that makes me very nervous. He's not Reagan. He's not Trump. He's lucky if he's Jimmy Carter.
Right. He's lucky if he's Irwin Corey. Remember that comedian who was a professor? But anyway, so look, $10 billion of that $40 billion was complete waste, was social spending, was outrageous. But the only way the Republicans in the minority can get the money needed to Ukraine was this way. Our weapon systems are more expensive than the Russian weapons systems. A lot of their tanks are old. A lot of the other stuff they have are old, and we're learning that now. It costs a lot more in America. Our labor costs a lot more. Even our military costs a lot more. Personnel, you know, when you're running a slave state, it just is a lot cheaper.
Can we agree that the things that we send over, we shouldn't proudly announce? I mean, that's another new thing that I've never seen before. We all know that Russia did that to us in Vietnam, and we do that to it. That's the way it happens. But never have I seen the country go, yep, look at us, we sunk those ships. Can we keep our mouth shut about that?
Apparently not. These leaks are outrageous. They undermine us. You're right. There ought to be secrecy. We shouldn't be bragging about anything. We shouldn't be celebrating about anything. Just beat the crap out of the, look, I'm Russian ancestry. I could care less. Just beat the crap out of these Russians. They invaded. All the talk about nukes and so forth. It's very interesting. I went back and I listened to Reagan, and I played some of this on my radio show, his clips. And it's almost like we're reliving this, except the establishment back then claimed that they were realists, and they believed in détente. And Reagan said, no, I believe in victory. And so he was counseled by Kissinger and others in the Republican Party and then the permanent government that you're going to, listen to this word, escalate our situation with the Soviets, and they might use nukes. And Reagan said, they're escalating every day, and they won't use nukes. We're just trying to confront them where they seek to expand. He went into Angola. He went into Nicaragua. He went into El Salvador. He went into Grenada when we had to go into Grenada. He took them on, I think I said Afghanistan. And his whole goal, and he didn't send in the United States military. There were freedom fighters. There were other forces who were willing to defend themselves, just as the Ukrainian people are willing to defend themselves. And he said, it's an evil empire. These are evil forces that we must confront. And he confronted them. Today, I think they would be calling him a neocon warmonger. But he wasn't John McCain either. He wasn't an interventionist either. He was trying to protect the United States interests by trying to prevent the expansion. And if you read what Putin wrote last summer, he thought he was going to cut through Ukraine. And what was he really aiming at? Eastern Europe. He was aiming at Poland, the Balkan states. So my view has been, if we don't stop him in Ukraine, and if he's not defeated effectively there, whatever that means, then the war would expand, and then you would have a world war with these NATO countries.
Well, I wish I could get you to be solid on one thing and really just drive it home, Mark. I wish you had some real opinions on things, but thank you so much. God bless you, and thank you for what you do every day, Mark, and thank you for what you said last night about the shooting, because you're absolutely right. God bless. Back in a minute.
And you too, Glenn. God bless you.
Allie Stuckey's coming up next. She's fantastic. If you're one of the millions of Americans who suffer every day from pain, I want you to listen up. There is hope, and it comes in the form of Relief Factor. Every day I see testimonials of people who tried Relief Factor for their pain, gotten their life back. It can happen like this. I read testimonials. I lived it myself. If you have tried everything, would you please just try Relief Factor? Don't give up. We need you in the fight. Just take the 3-week quick start. It's a challenge, really. You try it for 3 weeks, see if it works. 70% of the people who try it go on to order more. I'm one of those. I never thought this would work. Drug-free and natural way to get your life back. It's relieffactor.com. Go there now, relieffactor.com. There is a great show on Blaze TV. It's called Relatable with Allie Beth Stuckey. And yesterday during the shooting, she on vacation, right? Are you on vacation?
Vacation.
Yeah, gosh, I'm sorry. Thank you for coming in on vacation. But you had a Twitter thread yesterday that you were one of the few that I think actually is nailing this. It has nothing to do with guns. It has everything to do with the hole in the souls of so many of us.
Yeah, definitely. And I think there is particularly a disturbing aspect of this when you look at the demographic that seems to be committing these crimes, and that is young men, typically ages 14 to 24. No matter the race, no matter the political background or the ideology, that seems to be at least one of the main commonalities. So maybe we just need to face that and to ask specifically, how are we serving these young men? How are we creating a culture in which their aggression, which is natural to men, where they can channel that aggression into purpose and meaning? We have an epidemic of meaninglessness and purposelessness and godlessness that, yes, affects everyone, every age group, absolutely. But for this group of young men who have always been, since the beginning of time, desperate for purpose and a fight to fight, a good fight to fight, a community and family to protect, they're lost and they're idle. There's nothing more dangerous than a man with nothing to live for and nothing to do. And we are being told that every time. The shooter last week in Buffalo, he had to kill people because the other groups were enemies. The one before that, the other groups were enemies. This one, I've been bullied my whole life. Yeah.
We're creating people that nothing's real at all. Nothing is real. Nothing's worth it. You can't trust anything. Everything is changing. And then we have a culture that is pumping out, the world's going to end most likely, unless we fix this giant problem. And you'll never make it because the system's rigged against you. Of course you would pick up a gun. Right. And you and Mark Levin were talking about the importance of Judeo-Christian values. I think the most important of which is this idea that human beings are all made in the image of God, which runs counter to the things that we're hearing at the World Economic Forum, for example, where they basically talk about human beings as if they are a debit to the world. They're just a burden. Well, look, we wouldn't have any innovation, hospitals, charities, all of the wonderful things that the world has, all of the technologies that we have that make lives better if it weren't for human beings. But Christianity, we see human beings as a credit to society. We see them as a benefit to our world. And when you have this prevailing view of human beings as just burdens, as people who are just taking up space, and actually that one solution is depopulation, I mean, that's dangerous. Oh yeah, it's final solution stuff. I mean, that's exactly what this ideology has been tried over and over and over again, and it always ends in a Malthusian way. Always. Because there's no meaning. Your life isn't worth anything. Right. And, you're wearing holy jeans, and so am I, and I paid extra for mine. It makes me think every time I see this, when I was a kid, I would rip my jeans, and then, because we didn't have a lot of money, my mom or my grandmother would mend them. And I hated that because it showed, we were poor and blah, blah, blah. We don't do anything to earn these holes. But we so long for the look of painter pants that have paint splattered on them because it makes us look like we are out doing something. Everything we have is fake. everything.
Yeah, we want the glory without the guts
Right.
that come with it. I was thinking about, I mean, there's so many aspects to this. I think technology, obviously, it plays a role. It exacerbates the isolation. And this phrase, virtual reality, which is really a paradox if you think about it. I mean, if it's virtual, it's not reality. And yet, that is the world that a lot of young people are living in, especially over the past 2 years. What does that do to the human mind that may be already suffering, already struggling? Maybe they already have a mental health issue, or maybe not. No matter what, human beings were not made to function like that. We were made to function not just with challenge and not just with face-to-face community, but also to grapple with the goods and the bads, the guts and the glory of reality. When you take that away from someone, you take away what it means to be human. So they not only regard themselves completely meaninglessly, but also other people.
And life becomes, I mean, FDR said you cannot have welfare. You have to have workfare. Because if you take away the earning of something, then it's meaningless. And man has a meaningless existence. Everything, all struggle is being taken. All struggle, all failure is being taken and blamed on something else. We're creating a generation of monsters. Monsters.
Instant gratification. I was also thinking about that this morning. The instant gratification, the convenience that has come from the wonders of technology. There are a lot of goods to that, but there are a lot of bads. Again, when someone does not have to struggle for something, for all of human history, men especially, women too, but men have had to struggle for something. They've had to fight for something, literally. They've had to hunt for their food, or they've had to work really hard for it. Today, we don't have to work. A lot of people do not have to work for anything they have, and I think you're absolutely right. That takes away any feeling of self-dignity and regard for the dignity of others.
Amen. Go back on vacation.
Okay, I'll do that.
Thank you. Thank you. Allie Beth Stuckey, you can watch her show Relatable on BlazeTV. Back in just a minute. I want you to know that I am hopeful that we make it. I just don't know what that means exactly. I don't know how we make it. I know a remnant will make it. I know that God's protection has to really be earned. We have to be worthy of it. You can never earn it, but we have to be worthy of it at least. Worthy enough to ask for protection. Allie and I were just talking in the break that we're not sure that there's enough people to do that. Make sure you're one of them. Make sure that you're willing to look at the tough things. That's where you'll find Christ and love, and that's where your heart will be moved. Everybody's looking for an easy answer in this. The answer of all these shootings most likely convicts all of us in some way or another. Let's go for the right answer, not the easy one. We'll see you tomorrow with much more on radio. Good night, America.